Okay, so good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome from Chrissy, Lucy, and me to Bristol Tutorial College's webinar on what to expect from Results Day. Key things parents need to know about A-level Results Day, university offers, and the clearing process. It's not that long ago that one of my own children had to go through this very same process of clearing. And so I'm actually very aware of the stresses and strains A-level results day brings to parents. And so thank you for being part of this session tonight. As parents ourselves, Chrissy, Lucy, and I, like you, simply want our children to have the best opportunities and options available to them. And as teachers and heads in schools ourselves, we know that the next 6 days before your children find out their results is one of the most angst-ridden periods of time ever. It seems to go on and on. As all of us on this webinar are parents or carers or supporters of young people, and I know we also have some students too on this webinar, we obviously hope that they will do as well as possible in these A-level exams, but we also innately fear what will happen if it doesn't quite go according to plan or our children are disappointed. It almost feels bizarrely worse for us as parents. What do I do? How can I prepare? Who do I turn to? Well, the great news is we're here tonight to doubly reassure you that everything will be okay and to give you a roadmap if it doesn't quite go according to plan on results day. From my own experience as both a parent and as a head, I can tell you that whatever happens, your children are going to be absolutely fine in life because they have you supporting them. And that's such a positive in their life in their lives at the moment. So thank you for attending tonight. Chrissy, Lucy, and I have already been through this ourselves as parents over several years. And cumulatively, with five children through A levels, the stress doesn't stop. Lucy currently has one daughter who is waiting for her A level results, and like you right now, is on tenterhooks. So she'll be able to speak to you later from a position of experience. Everything we say tonight comes from the heart and from our own experience behind us. In many respects, this is exactly why we set up Bristol Tutorial College, as we know that we can and will reassure you tonight about your child's future, whatever the outcomes for them. And of course, we're always here to support you if you need assistance between now and results day, and obviously afterwards as well. I'm John Milne, and I'm the owner and co-founder of Bristol Tutorial College, and I have over 3 decades of working in schools and supporting students and their families. And I'm also delighted to be joined tonight by Chrissy Namenko, the principal of BTC, and Lucy Wayman, also a co-founder and a teacher at BTC. So let's dive straight into this webinar. The format this evening is pretty straightforward. There's an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you may want in the Q&A channel. It's all confidential and no names will be used and nobody will see your questions. You'll also receive a copy of this webinar and the slide deck, so don't worry about missing any crucial pieces of information or an answer to a question, as it will be sent to you by the end of this week. And there is a lot of information in this presentation. Apologies if we cover old ground, but it's better to be prepared and for you to have a guide for results day and beyond. We have over 70 attendees on the webinar tonight, and so we have to cover a lot of bases. And finally, don't wait. Get in touch beforehand if you're not sure about anything. No question is too small or silly, and we'd rather that you were prepared for your child and contact us and have a conversation than sit and wonder and miss out on their behalf. This webinar tonight is in 3 parts. The first part is what to expect and what to prepare for. The second part is the well-being of your child, and Lucy's going to talk about what you can do in advance of results day as well as after results day. And then finally, the third part is the Q&A section. We've already had a number of questions through via email, and so I will be answering those questions as we go along too. But to get the webinar underway, I just wanted to go through a number of slides about what to expect on results day, what you can do if it doesn't go according to plan, and 3, what your options are. So next slide, please, Chrissy. So I want to start with some positive news for you all today, as reported by the BBC and UCAS this morning. You may already have seen this, but the headline from UCAS on the BBC was "More teens to get their choice of uni, even if they narrowly miss their grades." UCAS says universities have made more offers this year, which it says typically translates into more acceptances. This is good news because it means that more students are going to be taking up more places. So that means that even if your child misses out on their predicted grades, then there's still a good chance that they will be picked up by the university and or they may end up being given a slightly better offer for the same course. Now, there's a good reason for this, in that much of it is down to the fact that universities are anticipating lower than expected international enrollment. So, this is a real boon to students, both domestically and internationally. But I thought I'd highlight this as a piece of positive news. It isn't about lowering standards, it's about supply and demand. And this year, the universities are looking to fill their places as much as they possibly can. Okay, so next slide, please, Chrissy. Um, Apologies if it's still showing slide one. Is that right? Chrissy, I think it's still stuck on slide one. Maybe reboot it, Chrissy, maybe restart it and put it back up.
Apologies, John. It's showing me the second slide. Is it stuck
Okay.
on the first one?
Yeah, it's still stuck on the first one. So maybe close it and start it again.
Apologies. Right, there's the second slide. Can you see the second one?
Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so starting at the very beginning, your child is probably holding one of two types of offer right now. Unconditional, that is, your child has already met the entry requirements and are guaranteed a place, which is actually quite rare, by the way. Or, as I suspect most of you on this webinar, your children are holding conditional offers where the student has to meet certain entry requirements based on exam results. Along with some other statistics I'll present today, I think it's important to remember that most students, no matter how intelligent or confident they are, will be holding conditional offers. This is the majority or the norm. It's sometimes very easy to think that your child is the only one where there is a lot riding on exam results day, but it's all relative. So please be reassured that your child is in a good place with a conditional offer, as it means that the university believes in them and really wants them to come, even if the grades might be slightly lower on results day. And with the latest BBC reporting today, hopefully we can all be very positive about our children's chances next Thursday. We all imagine as parents that results day for every other child is about photo opportunities and celebrations, whereas the reality is that for many students, clearing is actually the norm. Next slide, please, Chrissy, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Can you see it? Is that...
Yeah, perfect. That's perfect. Thanks, Chrissy. Okay, so when does clearing open? So this year, clearing officially opened on the 5th of July, believe it or not. And many parents don't realize this, but it only really gets into full swing once A-level results have been published on the 14th. So on this basis, it's really worth searching for courses already if you want to have a backup plan for your child in advance. It's the case that many universities already know they will not fill particular courses, and so are lowering grades and making them available even as we speak. It's also important to remember that unis get the results from the exam boards this weekend, and so they will know exactly where the gaps are by Monday, Tuesday of next week before results day. Even though there's an embargo on releasing the results until the Thursday, schools obviously don't receive the results until next Wednesday. But knowing that clearing is already open is especially important if your child already has their IB or Scottish Higher results, as this means that they can already be applying through clearing if they've missed their grades or if they've changed their mind and they want to do a slightly different course. So your child can start using clearing if they're eligible as soon as they have their IB or higher results. They don't need to wait until the main A-level results day. Equally, if you are waiting for results day for A levels because your child sat those exams, then using UCAS Clearing this week and next week to understand what options are currently available in advance is potentially a great starting point and sound advice for your child to be ahead of the curve if they're concerned. It costs nothing to use the UCAS portal, and so it pays to be prepared. And we'll be discussing this in the next few slides. So next slide, please, Chrissy. So, what is clearing in real terms? Well, historically, clearing has suffered from a bit of a misnomer in the past, and it really isn't what you possibly think it is. And this is important for students to understand. First of all, I want to be very upfront and say that clearing doesn't mean compromise. Clearing is very much misunderstood, and historically, it's been seen as a fail-safe or something for you if you fail. It's a plan B, and you only go through clearing if you're a failure. But clearing is actually an integral part of the overall UCAS offer to ensure maximum student choice and to manage the huge number of student applications. The clearing and the perception of it has undergone significant changes in recent years. And this is important for us as parents to understand because where in the past it has perhaps been stigmatized as for failures and the last chance saloon and a scramble for less than desirable places, it's now more associated with flexibility and student choice. A large proportion of students use it to change their minds on or before results day, rather than simply because they have no other option. Positively, it's now very much seen as part of the process rather than an end in itself. And this is important for us as parents, as we mustn't put our own fears and perceptions about clearing onto our children, whereas they themselves might actually see clearing as an extension of the process and not something to be worn as a badge of failure like we possibly did when we were in school. So try to gauge gently what your child is thinking about the prospect of clearing and what they know. You might actually be surprised. And Lucy will be talking in a short while about how you can potentially broach this topic with your child in advance without potentially undermining their self-esteem and potential accusations that you don't believe in them. One final point. I believe that this statistic is really important for us as parents. In 2024, more than 42,000 students used clearing. Of those, 66% took up a place at a university in the same tariff band as their original first choice, which is incredibly noteworthy. 22% moved from a lower tariff university to a medium tariff university, and 6% were also able to move from a lower tariff university to a higher tariff university. These are all hugely positive changes upwards by using clearing. Clearing is not a sync option and never has been. It's the obvious way in which the universities can manage significant numbers and offer the right courses to the right student. So there is so much offer on these days. Next slide, please, Chrissy. So before we delve into the detail of results day, I just wanted to quickly touch on something called self-release or changing your mind before results day about your choices. One caveat, however, and that is before using self-release, I'd always recommend speaking to a trusted person in your school or education setting before self-releasing. But this is becoming more and more popular with students and parents who want to exercise more choice and option ahead of results day. Why would you self-release from UCAS, you might ask? Well, you may well have seen a different course in the run-up to results day, or maybe your child may have left school in the summer thinking that they wanted to do another course, and maybe they've changed their mind entirely over the summer holiday about what they want to do. The self-release can actually be quite important because it allows you to take control of the decisions that you make rather than having to wait until results day. It's important to remember that you're not beholden to the original options you made back in January. And you're certainly free to take control of your own destiny if you want to. UCAS allows that. But please do seek sound advice before doing this. Um, Please note, however, that there are also instances where some students have self-released themselves because they lose confidence in themselves post-exams and over the summer. And they've used self-release, sadly, because they feel it allows them to unburden themselves before results day. They might have panicked or they might not feel that they're worthy or good enough for a certain course. And so being free of results day is a safer place to be. They have almost a crisis of confidence. So self-release should only ever be used as a positive choice and should only be used in this way for the reasons I've just mentioned above all. And advice and or discussion with someone such as a trusted adult in your school should be sought before you elect to go down the self-release option. Next slide, please, Chrissy. So in real terms, what are some top tips ahead of results day? So prior to results day, if your child suspects that they mightn't get the grades they need, encourage them to do some forward planning to make the process easier. In raising the topic of forward planning, it's actually a good point of learning for young people to know that it's okay to be prepared for all outcomes. And it's a healthy way to approach stressful situations. Yes, they might kick against you, and when you mention it, but by raising it as a sensible approach, I suspect they will secretly appreciate the fact that you have validated their concerns and feelings, and you've provided them with some wise, sage, and probably timely advice. There will inevitably be some short-term teenage grumpiness about you not thinking that they will get their desired results, but they will actually secretly, I think, thank you for it. Trust me, although you'll never know about it. It's a good lesson in life for our children to know in advance what their options are, and it shouldn't be seen as a sign of weakness or defeatist. Far from it, actually. It's about choice and being in control of your situation by exploring clearing in advance. And so, in preparation, this would include researching other universities before results day and maybe some other degrees that they're interested in, compiling a list in order of priority of the universities they want to contact on results day if it doesn't go according to plan. Um, Checking that they have their UCAS ID. They'll need this when they ring the universities direct to discuss places. They'll also need their unique ID number that they'll be issued with on results day if they're in clearing. And that's going to be very visible when you go into your UCAS hub or your UCAS portal. Reread personal statements in advance of results day, although it's rare. Some universities will want to gently talk to students in clearing about their achievements and why they want to study a particular subject during the clearing process. Maybe get them to write down any questions they have. These might be about a course, the content, some student life, or accommodation, just so that when they talk to universities, they seem particularly enthusiastic and keen and inquisitive. Maybe ask the students or your child to run through what they want to say when they call a university. That will give them some confidence, although I know that that's never that easy. Remember, for young people, making phone calls can be hugely stressful and they can genuinely still be in a bit of a state of shock if they didn't get the grades that they wanted. So be prepared to help them is useful advice as well. And on a supportive note, whilst you can't conduct the calls for them, you can certainly be in the vicinity to support them should they need it or they need your support. And although initially you can't speak to the universities directly yourself as a parent, if your child starts a call and then finds it too stressful or they're having difficulties, then they can actually request to hand the call over to a trusted adult to continue the discussions on their behalf. And most unis are happy to do this. So again, you can support your child in that way. Clearing, it's important to remember, isn't an interrogation for the student, it's a support. And you'll probably find that most universities are super friendly. You can reassure your child that they will be wanting to help. And remember, 24,000 students went through clearance 3 years ago, and it was 42,000 students last year. So it's actually a very normal thing to be doing. It's not unusual. Okay, next slide, please, Chrissy. So what happens during clearing in simple terms? Again, don't worry about all of the detail that I'm providing because you will get a copy of the presentation and we'll also send you a copy of the video. But in simple terms, remember that there are two things going on during results morning. Your child gets their results from their school, usually in the form of an email, or in some instances, they'll collect them in hard copy form at school and in person. Some educational settings and schools are open very early, and others aren't open until later. So there's no standard rule. So it's really important to know timings for your child that are issued by their school. And the second strand that's going on as part of results day is obviously the A level results being delivered via their UCAS hub. Their choices being delivered by their UCAS hub. So via their UCAS hub, they will have been told whether they've either been accepted onto their firm choices, their insurance offer, or indeed whether they've been given an alternative course offer based on their grades. So remember, for your child or for the person you're looking after, there's a lot that's going on, and it's typically not in coordination either. So they're not getting their A level results and their acceptances by universities at exactly the same time. And I'll explain that in a second. So again, it can be quite confusing. So knowing what to expect and being there to support young people is actually really, really important. There are often cases of students knowing whether they've been accepted or not into university before they actually know their actual A level results. This seems crazy, but it's actually incredibly true. And because of the timings of when results and acceptances are published on the 14th, and also the vagaries of technology that UCAS uses, it's almost a certainty that the UCAS website will crash typically at about 8:30 on Thursday morning. It's also equally eminently possible that your child could find out that they've been accepted onto a course in a university via their grades before they even access their UCAS hub, because the UCAS hub hasn't been updated or there's been an actual delay. So please be aware of these two competing strands, the results being issued by the schools, the acceptances being issued by UCAS. You would think that in the UK that we could coordinate these two aspects perfectly, but the only thing you can guarantee about results day is that it's fluid and predictably unpredictable. So being psychologically prepared for anything is actually very helpful to manage everyone's expectations. Similarly, there have been instances where students have been accepted onto their conditional course and been informed via their UCAS hub of this fact, but the university has done this based on lower than expected grades, which the student hasn't seen yet because the school hasn't either published the results in a timely fashion, or they haven't received them via email, or it's gone into their junk. So in these instances, students have assumed that they've achieved the grades needed for their conditional place because they've been told in the UCAS hub that they're in. But they've been embarrassed slightly later when they finally get their results because they've told their friends and their family that they must have got triple A when actually they got ABB, but the university still accepted them on lower grades anyway. But this is again because there's a delay between sometimes UCAS being updated and or the results coming through. So it's really important to make sure that before everything is sorted, that yes, you'll know from the UCAS hub whether or not a child has been accepted and or has gone into clearing, but make sure that they actually physically open the email, see their grades, or if they're going in to get them, that they've got a hard copy and that they've seen their grades. Don't just assume that because you're into a university and you've got your place, that you got the grades that you needed, because it is actually very fluid. And equally, on the other side of the coin, there have been students where they've got even better grades than they expected, and they could trade up in terms of courses and reputation of universities, but they've assumed that because their first choice university has accepted them and they got exactly what they predicted, they didn't realize that they actually could have been more aspirational. So again, really important to check your child's results, because if they do get better than expected results, Yes, they might get into their first choice, but actually they could go into clearing and try to get an even better course or a better university if that's what they wanted to do. So assuming that your child is waiting for A-level results A-level results to find out their university outcomes, and they don't get the grades that they need for their offers, they'll automatically be placed into clearing anyway. Their status in their application, their UCAS portal will read, you are in clearing, and they'll be given a unique clearing ID number. They'll need this number together with their UCAS ID when they contact universities via clearing hotlines to discuss course vacancies. And obviously, vacancies are listed on the individual university websites. UCAS also hosts a searchable database of available places and offers a matching service called Clearing Plus. And so this is very useful to use on results day and is accessible through the UCAS hub. These matches in Clearing Plus are based on the information your child provided in their UCAS profile, and they'll be able to view that profile in the UCAS hub. But they don't have to apply. They're just suggestions to help your child explore their options when you go into Clearing Plus. Please keep checking the university websites and the UCAS hub, as course availability sometimes takes time to appear online, as updating by unis and UCAS on the Thursday of clearing isn't always instant and in real time. So, for example, as everyone from 8 o'clock in the morning starts to accept or decline their offers, universities might advertise certain courses that have suddenly become available. But of course, we all know that when we sometimes load something onto a portal or sometimes when we load things onto a website, it doesn't appear automatically. So even if you check at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning and the course that you were hoping to get on in clearing isn't available, it's worth checking again, maybe in an hour and a half or 2 hours later, because it may well then have filtered through. Um, and I suppose during clearing, just remember that but just by being there and around on results day is the most important thing that you can do for a young person. Not interfering, but just being there. Your presence is all that's needed. Um, and having said this, don't underestimate that on results day, if your child is disappointed with their results, they will probably be in some form of mild shock. And so don't be afraid to steer things for them and to offer to be practical, even if it means it will feel that you are also an emotional punch bag at the same time. And we'll talk about this in a little while. So the results day checklist. Next slide, please, Chrissy. On results day, good advice for your student or your child is to have their list of potential clearing universities they're interested in ready and a note of their clearing call centre numbers and entry requirements so that they can quickly get started if they need to get going. And make sure mobile phones are charged and have leads and backups, etc. It's important to keep your actual results to hand because universities will want you to actually confirm those and not just speculate. Make sure that your UCAS ID numbers are written down and accessible. Have the UCAS clearing course search open so that you can research potential opportunities in between calls. And above all, don't panic. Try to stay calm and remember that your child will get a place at a great university in the UK. That's the best setting for them. So trust that they will get into a setting that's the best setting for them. So next slide, please, Chrissy. This slide provides a bit of a flow chart as to the different combinations of outcomes on results day. But again, please don't worry about this. You'll get a copy of these slides. This is just really for your reference. But just to give you some details. So when do UCAS actually publish their information on results day? Well, a few years ago, the the acceptances rather in the UCAS portal were released accidentally just after midnight. And then I think it was a couple of years ago, it was accidentally released at 3 a.m. And you can always assume that the UCAS website will crash probably first thing in the morning. So it's really difficult to say to you the results will be on the UCAS portal at a specific time, but typically UCAS will say to you they're available from 8 a.m. But as you can imagine, trying to access the UCAS portal can be a little bit like trying to buy Oasis tickets. You may end up with several devices on the go all at once, all logged in separately, trying to access the UCAS hub. But typically, the website is updated on or around 8 o'clock in the morning. So students are free to start accessing it, but don't be surprised if it may appear earlier or slightly later. There really isn't much that we can do about that. Um, Make sure that your child checks their junk mail for any emails that have come through either from school or from the universities, because that's often the case that there's disappointment. But when someone checks their junk mail, there's an email in there saying from the university that they've been accepted. And one other outcome that sometimes takes students by surprise is that they may not have achieved the grades that they needed for their firm offer, but the university have given them, say, an alternative offer. So a similar course to one that they've missed out on, but maybe with a different grade or a tariff. So don't be surprised if this is a possible option to put in front of your child. Equally, don't feel pressured or grateful for an alternative offer, and be patient because you can still go into clearing and there's a chance that you'll get the course that you want anyway. Next slide, please, Chrissy, if that's okay. So again, just to reiterate on results day, it's important not to panic. Tens of thousands of students go through the clearing process every year, and the overwhelming majority successfully find a place on an undergraduate course. So your children are certainly not alone if they're in clearing. On results day, it can certainly feel like clearing is moving rapidly as university places fill up, but help your child to stay calm. It's important that you and your child take your time and consider your options because these are big decisions. Reassure your child before results day that many students apply through clearing every year and go on to have an amazing, successful time at university, but they will need to start ringing universities to discuss courses as soon as they can. So don't panic, but again, be purposeful is probably the advice. If they haven't got the results that they were hoping for, encourage them to contact both their firm and insurance choice universities first to discuss their results, because it may be possible to swap to another degree course with slightly different entry requirements, as I mentioned before. The next two slides are fairly self-explanatory, so I won't go into those in too much detail. They're really just advice about what you should be thinking about when you're making the calls. And then the next slide, please, Chrissy, during clearing, things to remember. Again, fairly straightforward. So what to do after your call. So remember, if you're waiting for confirmation, it can be very slow from UCAS to update not only their website, but also your child's portal. And this sometimes, honestly, can take up to 3 hours to update. So if you've been offered something by a university, don't expect that to appear in your UCAS portal straight away. It could take an hour, it could take 2 hours, it could take 3 hours for a variety of reasons. Some for the technology reasons I've explained, and some because the universities, if they've taken you on your word that you've achieved certain grades and that you are passionate about a certain subject, they've got to check those grades and they've got to do their own due diligence. So sometimes it takes them a little bit of time to log in, get your results, confirm them, process that application, and then publish either on your UCAS portal or send you an email that you've been accepted onto another course. So don't panic about that. But this is why it's really important to know your grades, because universities will have to double check and confirm your grades before officially offering a place during clearance. So it pays to know what you officially got as grades and not what you have assumed because you didn't get your firm offer. Remember that there is a 1 p.m. deadline in clearing for those that want to add a choice. This means that although you're in clearing, if you didn't get your firm option or your insurance option from 8 o'clock, and you can see your application status, and you will be talking to universities, but you will only be able to add a choice from 1 p.m. So again, have those conversations, hopefully get those offers, but you won't be actually able to modify anything until 1 o'clock. And remember, if all else fails, or if you feel you need to talk to someone on the day about where to turn next, then we are available, Chrissy, Lucy, and myself, to listen and to help. So please actually do get in touch. So there's a lot of information in there. And as I mentioned before, you'll get all of this, so don't worry about it. We're now going to turn to Lucy, who's going to talk to us, along with Chrissy, about how we can help to prepare our students and our children between now and results day, but also importantly during results day and post results day in terms of being there for a support, saying the right things, and being present. So, handing over to you, Lucy.
Thank you, John. So yes, sometimes as the parent of a teenager, it does feel like you're never going to say the right thing. So what does it matter anyway? But honestly, it really does matter. As a parent, you may be looking at your child now and thinking, oh, they're not quite themselves. They are spending more time in their room. They're particularly short-tempered or grumpy with me. They're having mood swings. And you can probably know in the back of your mind that it's because they've got some anxiety about results day coming up. Remember, might not even know themselves that that's what they're anxious about. They might just feel out of sorts. Even as quite late on teenagers, children aren't always very good at naming their emotions. They don't quite know what's going on in their heads. So you can acknowledge it. And I think it's good to acknowledge it. But again, it's always about keeping open questions, non-judgmental questions, and picking your moments. If your child is in the middle of having a bit of a strop and grumping at you for whatever reason, it's probably not the best time to bring up something as sensitive as how they're feeling about their results. Because while we know that 10, 20, 30 years down the line, a slip of a grade here or there is not going to change your path in life. For your children, this is the biggest thing they've ever done. They see that the whole purpose of their 18 years up till this point is on this one day. So understandably, they're going to be really anxious about it, or they might be really anxious about it. Um, yep, so open-ended questions. I've noticed, or talk to me about, or have you thought, or questions that start off like that are going to be more likely to get your child to respond. You'll probably also get the back end of it if you get it wrong, and you will be the person who doesn't know anything and doesn't understand, and just you have to get back in your box. And you mustn't take that personally. It can be really hard not to because they are your children, but actually, if your children feel able to be short-tempered with you, it often means that that's because you're the person they trust the most, because they know that you're not going to go off. um, you will always come back for more because that's what we do as parents. So, on a practical level, behind the scenes, you can be helping to prepare, as John said earlier, you can be helping to prepare for if things don't go to plan, so that come results day, if they don't go to plan, you don't have this, well, this is it, my life is over, I can't do anything anymore, it's all gone, I've ruined everything. And again, you have to pick your moments. But if you have said, well, actually, do you know what? If you went to this place, you could do this or that, or there are other options. So you've researched yourself, then pick your moments to share with your child. It's also worth saying at this point that university isn't an essential for being successful and happy in life. It's a great thing for most people and it's aspirational. And I wouldn't ever put someone off it if they want to go to university. But If your child absolutely bombs their A levels and they've bombed them because they haven't revised, because they haven't been engaged, because they haven't enjoyed their course, then trying to shoehorn them into a course at a university where you kind of know that they're not actually suited, they're not going to fit, isn't going to be doing them any favors in the long run. They might be better with an apprenticeship. They might be better doing a different course, which is where you come back to the clearing. Have conversations about, are there other things that, when we were looking at your UCAS form the first time round, things we may have thought about that we'd discarded. It was nearly a year ago they were thinking about these things. A year is a long time in the life of a teenager. They might even be scared, even if they get their grades, that actually they don't want to do their course that they had thought that they were desperate to do 6 months ago, and now actually they've changed their mind. So we have to be open to all those sorts of things that might happen with our children and be non-judgmental with them. Helpfully guide them towards options. Don't shut them down. If they don't do as well as they could, I asked my son earlier, what would be the worst thing a parent could say if you didn't get the grades you wanted? And he said, if you say, I told you so, I knew you didn't work hard enough, that's about as bad as it gets. It's not going to get worse than that. You may well be walking a tightrope with your children to work out when you should be suggesting new things and when your child might genuinely have mental overload from the exam results coming in and being told, right, you've got to do clearing, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And sometimes that's just too much for somebody to take on. And actually, they need to take a deep breath and you need to say to them, don't worry, it's all okay. It will be okay. And here are some options that when you're ready, we can talk about. So allow your child time to process things. Talk to them and say, I understand it's tricky. I understand this isn't easy. I'm here if you want to chat. Um, so, yeah, I think being understanding, being prepared to be a bit of a punch bag if necessary, but do your research behind the scenes, but only share it when you're sure your child isn't going to turn around to you and say, well, the fact that you've been looking at clearing shows that you didn't have any faith in me in the first place, because obviously you do. So you're just saying, well, I'm looking at options. I believe in you entirely, but sometimes those examiners are just rubbish and they get it wrong. I'm on your side. I just want to help. And hopefully that will reassure them that, you're not there to judge them. I tell you, if they don't do as well as they expect, they will be judging themselves. They don't need you to do that too. So
Yeah.
our job is there to support.
Thanks. Thanks, Lucy.
Okay, yeah, pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks very much for that, Lucy. So, Chrissy, just building on this and moving on to the next slide. In practical terms, and this is the sales bit for Bristol Tutorial College, if a student's plans don't work out, then we're being seen as more of a plan A rather than a plan B, because as Lucy's just highlighted, there are many reasons why perhaps university just isn't the right timing or just isn't the right place for a lot of our young people. And so Bristol Tutorial College was founded on the basis that we wanted to be the best setting for each and individual student. So could you just give us a little bit of background about the setting of BTC, what we're for, and maybe talk about some of the students that we've had this past year and what we've done for them?
Thanks, John. Thanks, Lucy. Yeah, so we have been located at Berkeley Square since September last year. Prior to that, we were an online school which was established during COVID. And what we recognised working with students online was that there was a big need for a physical school setting like ourselves. So we work with predominantly 16 students. So those are students who have done GCSEs or IGCSE courses. We have students coming to us for A-level courses. We have students coming to us doing some GCSE resits alongside some level 3 extended diploma courses in business. as well as introducing A-level courses as well. I think it's so important, John, that you highlighted the process of UCAS. What we are seeing actually is quite a few students coming to us for A-levels. So they're waiting for GCSE results, which will be coming exactly a week after A-levels next week. So we also offer A-level students, we offer resits for A-level students who perhaps don't get the grades that they need and then decide that maybe they want to do something completely different. We've got students who are coming to us to do 3 sciences because they've decided that they want to do medicine and study dentistry, for example. But when they were choosing their A-level courses at school, they didn't choose sciences. But so I think flexibility in terms of what we offer is really key. Some of our students work part-time, so they want a learning program that fits in with other part-time commitments. We have some students that want to just study completely online with us because they live quite a way away from Bristol. But we also have a huge body of students that really like to come into Berkeley Square and get involved with. We do a whole series of courses around sort of careers, open days, university visits. And I think, with clearing coming up, a lot of our parents will be taking students to visit universities. And I think that's a really important piece of work that we can support with as well. So we are all going to be at Berkeley Square next Thursday. We've got tea, biscuits, and bags of empathy for you and your children. It's so hard as parents. We've all been through results days numerous times, and I think I always say to students, and I don't know if they ever believe me at the time, that you always end up on the course that you're meant to end up on. John talked about reasons for thinking about a change of subject if you don't perform well in an A-level exam, because that could be an indicator that maybe there's a side kind of interest that needs exploring, because increasingly it's very expensive to go to university. Halls of residence, accommodation, living costs are a huge investment, and if a course isn't right for a student, we have lots of students that do better than they thought they were going to, and they're able to go to a much better university. We have students that we take through UCAS applications that don't get any offers. They're top high-performing students, and increasingly those students use clearing. So as John said, it's completely changed. Now clearing is a really, really good choice. It gives students options to change. And equally, if there is a particular A level that a student wants to retake, or they may have gone through an application process with the university and not got an offer because they haven't got further maths at A level, for example, then we're working with students that are just studying one A level. So in a nutshell, we can put a learning program together. It could be 1 GCSE resit, it could be 3 or 4. We can certainly talk to you about an A-level course or 3 A-level courses. We've got resit students that have already planned. They're anticipating that results aren't going to be what they're happy with. So we can pretty much discuss any aspect, any course. Apprenticeships, again, there are university equivalent apprenticeships. There are apprenticeships that students want to join after sitting A levels as well. We've got level 3 extended courses which are equivalent to A levels as well. So yes, we've got a whole raft of subjects and very experienced teachers that are examiners as well. So yeah, so please get in touch. My details will be on the email that will be coming around, the link that will be shared to this evening, as well as the slides. And we'd love to hear from you, even if it's just a question. Please do get in touch with us.
Thanks, Chrissy. Could you move on to the next slide if that's possible? I think we've got a section for questions. I haven't seen any questions yet in the Q&A box, but we have had a couple of questions come in this past week. One of them, which you um, touched on, which is how quickly or not we can respond. One of the beauties of being so bespoke at Bristol Tutorial College is that if a parent is looking for a solution, then we can be very responsive and we can have a plan in place for their children to start learning from September onwards, when ordinarily everyone would be returning to school or going to university. But equally, if a parent isn't in a rush, or maybe the child needs a bit of time to regroup, we can be flexible on that front as well, can't we?
Absolutely, John. And I think, there's no sort of straight roadmap, is there?
Mm.
Bumps in the road happen. We know that. And, it's so hard saying this to a teenager. This will define you. If you don't get the results, it will be fine. And at the time, it isn't for them. But time really does help. And I think what's really important is the students that join us who have bombed all of their exams feel really proud about coming to the college. They often say to their peers, I'm at sixth form at BTC and I'm loving it, because they don't want to discuss failing results with their peers. They might feel really embarrassed. And increasingly, a lot more schools are doing results remotely. So, students don't go in and see each other and talk about their results. And as parents, we don't tend to share our results on our social media, as some parents do with permission of from their teenager. But again, sort of information. I think a lot of students are really sensitive, even if they've done well, because again, they don't want their peers to feel bad. So I think we really rebuild self-esteem. We really provide such an inclusive offering that really gets students back on track. And increasingly, parents are choosing us not because their children have failed, they're choosing us because they really love what we do and what we champion and promote.
And I'd encourage parents to talk to us as soon as possible. We had one young person last year. The mum came to us, I think it was at the end of October, and when we asked her about her daughter was so disappointed with her results that neither the mum nor the daughter had spoken about the results since results day. So, a good 2, 3 months had gone by where nothing was said. And it was very awkward and very difficult. And it was obvious to the parent that the daughter was hugely upset and she didn't want to talk about it. And the longer that went on, the daughter didn't quite know how to then broach the subject with her mum. So it was in opening up to us that we were able to say to the mum, look, we can adopt a joint approach with you, talk to us, we can give you some strategies like the ones that Lucy's talked about. But also, we can make it as comfortable as possible in terms of maybe bringing her in a no, in a non-threatening way, which she did. And she came in, and instantly she could tell that it was going to be accessible and safe and nurturing and grown up, because it's in Berkeley Square in Bristol, and it's independent. And so she would feel that it belongs to her and it's not just plan B. And so we've had tremendous success with her, and she's really flourished over the past 6 months. But don't suffer in silence. It can be really, really awkward and very difficult, but we're here to help. And we genuinely hope that we won't see you, because that means that your child has got into the course that they want to get into, or they're off on a path that is the right path for them, or maybe they've gone in a gap year. But life doesn't work like that. And we are very genuine because we're rooted in education. We're teachers and we've worked with families all our lives. We really do want to help. And even if your child doesn't end up coming to us, if you've had a positive experience with us, and that word of mouth is really, really important. But we're very nurturing, we're very bespoke, and we can be very flexible. But we do have tremendous outcomes, as Chrissy has pointed out, and we can deliver that in a range of different ways according to the needs of the students and also the timing of the year, because sometimes other periods are easier than others. Okay, so just looking at the Q&A, there are no more questions. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. All it leaves me to say is that we are available. We can be very flexible in terms of informal conversations either via WhatsApp or email or Zoom over the next week in the run up if you just want to come and have a look, or you just want to clarify something that's really you're wrangling with. But good luck, and thank you very much for joining us. Your children will be hugely successful because you're on this webinar, and that shows that you are a hugely supportive carer or parent or supporter. Um, and we will be sending a copy of this recording. Apologies for some of the technical issues at the beginning. I'm traveling, and so it's been difficult to connect different aspects of the presentation. But thank you for bearing with us. And we hope that at some point in the future we will cross paths. But we wish you all the very best for results day, whether that's A levels or GCSEs. And if it's not for full-time education, but you just want some top up in terms of some support or coaching for your child or tutoring, please also get in touch and we're happy to help. But thank you very much, everyone. And we look forward to hearing how you all get on in the coming weeks and months. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.